So thank you for joining me for another video. This is actually going to be the first of a sort of a questions and answers series. So hopefully I'll be able to keep these videos relatively short. So the question came, put my glasses on so that I can read it to you. The question came to me in the last couple of weeks asking me, why don't Jews proselytize, especially in light of the fact that other religions will specifically target Jews for conversion? Now, I think that's a great question. So let's get into it. Let's talk about that. So over $270 million is spent every year by Christian ministries to specifically target the Jewish people for conversion. Now, I'm only singling the Christians out because they really do seem like they're the most interested in converting Jews. It's not because I have a special vendetta against Christianity, but you know, it's easier to find Christian ministries that target Jews for conversion than it is to find, say, Hindu or Muslim or Buddhist missions to Jews. There are entire Christian ministries dedicated specifically to missionating them Jews, to missionizing Jews, to proselytizing to Jews. Whether it is the Messianic movement, which is a special branch of Christianity, it's kind of like a Jewish-flavored Christianity, to the more mainstream denominations, they will all take part in that sort of thing. Now, you don't see it so much among liberal Christians, but you will always find it among conservative Christians and fundamentalist Christians. Not that that's a bad thing. Everyone's got to, spread somehow, I guess. Now, despite all of this, Judaism just does not seek out converts. This is kind of strange because Christians, everybody knows that Christianity came out of Judaism. And if Christians proselytize, well then, why don't Jews? What's going on here? And as it happens, I know Christians who want to convert to Judaism. I know people who are not Christian who want to convert to Judaism. Why doesn't Judaism just sort of, latch on, take advantage of this opportunity and make more Jews? Well, the truth is we just don't like you enough. No, I'm just kidding. No, the very first question that's going to pop into my mind whenever you ask me, why don't Jews proselytize like Christians do or like Muslims do, because Muslims do it too. They don't target Jews generally, but they just kind of, cast a wide net. And I can't say on here what I wanted to say. Can't say that because it will get me in trouble with YouTube, but I'm thinking it, by golly. So you may be, wondering like me, if Christianity does it, if Islam does it, why don't we do it? And so I the very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to ask, why do Christians do it? Why do Christians proselytize? Well, the answer to that question, interestingly enough, is it's actually part of their religion. I only mentioned earlier that the Christians spend over $270 million, that's US dollars, every year to attempt to proselytize to Jews. What I did not tell you, and as any Christian will tell you, is that they're doing it to everybody. It's not just Jews. In fact, we only have, I got it written down here somewhere. It's about 5% of Christian missionary funds are spent proselytizing to Jews. So there's that. So we really aren't that big of a deal. But I guess if you're Jewish, well, it makes more sense that you would see more Christians targeting Jews for conversion. All right. So Christianity, though, it does have a built-in policy that they should go out and convert people. According to Gospel of Matthew, chapter 28, verses 16 through 20. This is in the Christian Bible. This is not a Jewish book. Jesus instructed his disciples to go into the world and make disciples of all nations, baptize them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Some of you may be surprised that I know that. I know things, all right? Might be like two things, but I know things. Now, historically, that has been interpreted by the church as a specific command to go out and convert anyone that's willing to listen, or to at least try to convert anyone who's willing to listen. It's it's actually so important of a thing in Christianity. It's such a big deal to them in Christianity that they actually have a special name for that specific passage of the gospel, which is the Great Commission. It's I shouldn't laugh at this, but it's actually kind of humorous because you've got these missionaries going out all across the world, and a lot of times they will go to these tribes that they haven't contacted before. Nobody's really talked to them before, and certainly in the early days of the Christianization of Europe, that was basically everybody. Had never heard of Christianity before. So it's actually fairly common if records of Christian martyrdom are accurate, that the Christians sent out missionaries to try to convert people, and then those missionaries ended up dead. So Christians have lost their lives trying to proselytize, and that's not funny. What is funny is that it keeps happening over and over. People somewhere along the way, somebody decided that it was a good idea to, hey, they killed the last 12 missionaries we sent. Let's send them another 5 or so. At some point, common sense has to take over. But back to the topic at hand. So Christianity, we know, began as a Jewish movement. Jesus was a Jew. His disciples were Jews. So why don't Jews proselytize if Christians do? Well, as it happens, there are 3 actually really good reasons that I can think of that pop off the top of my head. There are probably more, but I got 3 for you today. The first is that the Torah was never thought of as being universally binding. So Judaism is the national religion of the Jewish people. It is the, we are our own ethnic group. Ask any anti-Semite. They'll tell you that we're not white. They'll tell you that we're not Hispanic. They'll tell you that we're not, they'll tell you that we are our own ethnic group. Why? Because we are. We're all the same family. We're all descended from the same people. And some of you may be thinking to yourself, well, hold on. Aren't all people related to each other through Adam and Eve? Well, yes and no. Yes, all human beings are related to each other. No, it actually goes back further than Adam and Eve, but that's a topic for another time. So Judaism is, let's call it the ism of Judah. It's the religious tradition of the Jewish ethnic group. You can call it our folk religion, if you'd like. And with that in mind, there is absolutely no indication that it was ever intended to be put out there for everyone. Now, there actually is evidence in the Torah itself that God has a different set of rules. I don't know why I put my glasses on, but I think I'm going to leave them on. I just feel better, feel safer. I feel more intellectual. But there is evidence in the Torah itself that God has a different set of rules for Jews and non-Jews. Now we call the rules for Jews, we call them the Torah, or the mitzvot. There are 613. And if you're non-Jewish, you have the Noahide laws, of which there are 7. So a little bit easier to be not Jewish. And since Judaism doesn't have a only Jews go to heaven type mentality, okay, we're better that way. We not that we're better than others that way, but we are better off, that way. The religions of Christianity and Islam both have that. They are universalizing faiths. Judaism is not. Judaism doesn't care if you convert. We don't need you. And I don't mean that to be offensive. I don't mean that to be mean. But we're still going to be Jews, and the Jews will still be here, regardless of whether or not you convert. Now, if you want to convert, there is a way to convert, and we're very welcoming, and we would love to have you. But if you don't want to convert, that's okay. I don't want you to convert either. We like I said, we don't have a you have to be Jewish to get into heaven sort of philosophy. In fact, there's actually really some debate about whether or not heaven or hell exists within Judaism. Here's a hint: it doesn't. There is no indication in the Tanakh, in all of Scripture, that there is such a place as heaven and hell. There's a concept of the resurrection of the dead, but heaven and hell, that's not resurrection in the least bit. That's called dying. So the second reason that we don't try to proselytize, having issues saying words again today, is because, frankly, the Torah was given exclusively to Israel, and there's no real reason to consider that it should apply to anyone else. We talked about the Noahide laws, of which there are 7. Do you really want another 606 more? I mean, granted, most of them are easy, but it's more to do. I mean, now if you're into that kind of thing, okay. If not, okay. Like I said, you're not going to hell just for not being, Jewish. I need you to understand that you are created in the image of the Most High God. He chose to make you as opposed to somebody else. Granted, he made a lot of somebody else's, around 8 billion or so of us that are around today, but he chose to make you in his image, and therefore you're important to him. And if you're important to him, you're important to me. And it really bothers me when Jews seriously say that the non-Jews are we don't want them. That comes out of a place of centuries of hatred directed toward us, and it's not indicative of all Jews. But you will find occasionally Jews who want nothing to do with non-Jews because, frankly, they're scared. We've had centuries to learn that the Christians are not our friends. The Muslims, not our friends. The Hindus, in general, they're not so bad, but not our friends. Zoroastrians, probably also not our friends. Sikhs, we actually have a lot in common with Sikhs. We're both monotheistic faiths, but they're also we can be friends, but it's not a general rule that all people in any given religion will be friends with all people in any other religion. That anyone can be friends, but in general, non-Jews are not necessarily friends of Jews. That's just the way the world works. Very much in the same way that non-Christians are, not necessarily friends with all of Christians. That's just the way that works. But it does bother me when Jews are like, oh, we don't need non-Jews. We don't need to have anything to do with them. It's nonsense. We absolutely do. That's the whole point of being a chosen people. We're chosen for a reason. It's not just because we're special. In fact, it's the exact opposite. But we'll get into that in another video eventually, I'm sure. Look at my notes here because I am way off topic here. So the Torah is the backbone of the covenant that our God made with Israel based on his relationship with our ancestors. That actually kind of goes perfectly with what I was saying, chosen people. So we certainly accept converts, and we're willing to welcome them into our eternal covenant. But it's not needed. If you don't want to, we're not going to force you to. Now, the third reason, and this one actually kind of dovetails off what I was saying before about having a long and really, quite frankly, irritable history with other religions. The third reason that Jews have historically not sought out converts is because, frankly, people have hated us forever, just because we're Jews. If it's not for our race, it's for our faith. If it's not for the fact that we believe in only one God, it's the fact that we don't believe in more than one God, or we believe in more than zero gods, or whatever the case may be. Now, historically, and I really hate bringing up things like this, but historically, Jews have been persecuted at the hands of Christians and Muslims. And until fairly recently, in Christian countries, and even to this day in Muslim countries, it was illegal for Jews to proselytize there. It was illegal for us to accept converts. It was illegal for us to, in general, practice our faith. Why? Well, I have theories, but I'm not gonna throw them out because they're all mean, every single one of them. It ultimately boils down to they're just not nice people, historically. Does that mean that every Christian or every Muslim are, they're all bad people? No, absolutely not. In fact, most Christians I've met are good, hardworking, decent people. Most Muslims I've met are, good, decent people. Most Hindus, most Buddhists, most Sikhs, in fact, every Sikh I've ever met has been very hardworking and great people. Native American religions, most people are good, decent, hardworking, honest people in general. It's only the weirdos and the knuckleheads out there that make things difficult for the rest of their religion. I only bring up the persecution because if we were to bring in new converts, we're subjecting them to persecution as well. That's not something that we want to do. Now, it might seem like it'd be a good test of faith for a convert to, be potentially martyred, for their newfound faith, but that's a bad idea. The Torah says that you're going to keep them exposed, and by keeping them, you'll live by them. You'll live through them. So what is it telling us when it tells us that? Well, it says that if you're going to die for keeping them, you can change course a little bit. If it's going to kill you, if you're starving to death and you can't find any kosher food, but you can find a junior bacon cheeseburger from, I don't know who makes those, but you find a bacon cheeseburger, well, guess what? You're obligated to eat it until you can find kosher food, because you are to live through the mitzvot. You're not to die by them. We don't want to subject anyone to that sort of thing. Now, even though official persecution is not actually common at all in the United States, official persecution, I have been subjected to persecution for my faith. I've been confronted by anti-Semites, actually, for being Jewish. Yeah. Wild. Sometimes it's even Christian anti-Semites, so it's not, it's not like it's the majority of the time. It's not like it never happens. It's somewhere in between. So I can't imagine what it would be like for someone who converts from the majority religion to Judaism and is now persecuted by their family, persecuted by their former friends, persecuted by people that they used to persecute the Jews with, because they're now Jewish. So I can't imagine what that would be like. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, hey, Jesus was a Jew. Well, those are my three reasons, by the way. You might be thinking to yourself, hey, Jesus was a Jew. If he was a Torah-observant Jew, as many Christians today will suggest, what does it mean that he would give the Great Commission? What does it mean when he says to his disciples, hey, go out, go make disciples of all nations? Well, I'll put my glasses on for a second. I'm not actually sure, to be honest with you, but it's actually a good topic of discussion. And it's one that, in general, I think is probably bigger than this video is intended to be. Most Christians are going to insist that it is a calling to proselytize. I disagree, because if we're saying that Jesus is a Torah-observant Jew, and I'm going to go ahead and meet them on that level, I'm not saying that I believe that he was. I'm not even saying that I believe that he actually existed. But I will meet Christians on the he existed and was a Torah observant Jew level. I'll meet them on that level, and I'll counter it right quick. So, assuming he was a Torah observant Jew, assuming that there's really basically very little difference between him and your average Jew, what would the Great Commission be talking about? Well, as it happens, the Gospel of Matthew, the very same one in which you will find the Great Commission, tells us in chapter 10, verses 5 through 6, it records Jesus specifically telling his disciples not to go to the non-Jews, not to go to the Samaritans, but only to go to what he calls the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Now, that's a strange detail for the gospel to mention, and I personally believe that it points to a pre-Christian layer of the Gospel of Matthew, meaning that the original author of at least that portion was probably Jewish, and may have faithfully recorded something Jesus said. But again, if Jesus were a messianic claimant, he would need an army. You're not going to find that army among the Romans that you're trying to oust, But I feel like later generations of Christians really tried to kind of cover that up. Now, I'm just going to read you what I got here. If Jesus really gave the instructions in Matthew 10 and the Great Commission in Matthew 28, then it stands to reason that he probably assumed his disciples would follow their earlier instructions for the Great Commission. That's assuming that Jesus didn't change the instructions. Now, Christians in general are probably going to universally disagree with me on that. Say, no, well, it started out as just go to the lost sheep of the tribe of the house of Israel. And then later on, he opened it up to everybody. But I disagree, respectfully. Assuming that the instructions remain the same, which is exactly what we should expect, then we have to understand that the Great Commission was, in fact, a command for the Jewish followers of Jesus to go to other Jews who are not observant, which is part of the Messianic mission. This is part of what the Messiah is meant to do. If Jesus is a Messianic claimant, this is what he needs to do. After all, Matthew 10 does call them the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Lost sheep of Israel. Wayward Jews is what we're talking about here. Now it's reasonable to say that his plan was to bring these wayward Jews back to the Torah and eventually use them to help sort of push out the Romans. Now that's my interpretation of the Christian scripture on that. It's not at all what they would say, but I figured I'd address it while I was here. That being said, if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit like, hit subscribe, go visit my Facebook, Another Orthodox Jew. Ask questions, because I get answers like this one. Ask questions if you have them. Send them in the private messages on Facebook. That'd be the easiest way to do it. Additionally, you can just leave them in the comments section of the videos on here. Any sincere question, I'll answer. Thank you so much for joining me again for this video, and that's all I got. We'll see you next time.